Do you have to write the essay on the digital SAT or the essay, AKA writing test on the ACT? Or like, what is the deal with the essays on either of those tests? If you have any essay questions whatsoever, then this video is for you. I'm Kristina. I'm the owner and founder of Ivy Lounge Test Prep. And for the past 15 years, I have helped students all over the globe drastically raise their SAT and ACT test scores. And I have a lot of news and opinions about this topic. Ready to get started? I sure am. So first, we're going to start with the SAT essay. I know what you're thinking. You're like, but I thought it didn't have an essay. I'm going to explain because there is some confusion, especially if you are doing practice tests in the Blue Book app. So let's first talk the background of the SAT's essay. Let's say 10 years ago, right? When the SAT was out of 2,400, everyone had an essay. It was the very first section of the test. Like you couldn't not take it. In fact, the essay, which was like 25 minutes, it was part of your actual writing score. Like you had to do that and then the two multiple choice sections, and that would comprise your ultimate up to 800 points in the writing section. Okay. Now, the SAT redesigned. And so in January of 2016, it was a new test. All of a sudden, writing was part of reading. So it was evidence-based reading, writing. It was one section, math was another. Now it's out of 1,600 points. And now the essay was an optional thing that happened at the end. So you could choose to take it, you could choose not to take it, okay? And many times, right, I would have students and their parents come to me to work one-on-one. And the first thing we'd figure out in our Ace the Test game plan is which test, the SAT or the ACT, would be better suited for that student. And often, one of the things that would make a decision for us or help us make the decision would be the essay policy for the schools that they were planning to apply to. Okay, because think about it. Some colleges would require that you would, if you take the SAT, you have to do the essay. Some colleges would require that if you take the ACT, you have to do the writing or the essay. And some would require that, okay, if you do this one, you have to do the essay, but not if you take that test, and vice versa. Someone would require it for both, someone would require it for neither test, right? So that would be a big thing that we'd look at. But fewer and fewer colleges started requiring the essay. And when this happened, and then when the COVID pandemic happened in 2020, the College Board made a decision. So back January of 2021, the College Board eliminated the essay from the SAT. So now there's no choice to take it, right? And obviously, if there's no choice to even be able to take it, well, no college can really require it from you, can they? But then the digital SAT became the new game in town earlier this year in 2024. And again, there's no essay. But when you go into your Blue Book app, you're like, wait a second, why is it giving me a practice essay to potentially do? Is there an essay? So I've heard a lot of confusion. So I want to clear that up right now. Okay. So for the digital SAT, if you are registering to take it on one of the 7 national test dates, so that would be March, May, June, late August, October, November, December, right? Those 7 dates, then you do not have the option of doing an essay. It is not offered to you. It's just your 2 sections, right? Each with 2 modules, right? Reading, writing, and math. However, sometimes students will take the SAT during what is called a school day administration. So what that means is a high school will choose, sometimes it's a school district will choose, that everyone in their high school will get to do one sitting of the SAT, and the school or the school district will pay for it. Now, the reason that a lot of schools will do this is because you might have many students who cannot afford a registration fee, or maybe the logistics of getting to a testing center on the weekend might be too much for them. So to level the playing field and just give at least one opportunity for everyone to be able to take the test, many schools will offer it during a school day administration. Now, if you are a student whose high school is offering you to take a free SAT during the school day, it could be that your state may offer or require an essay. Not everyone. In fact, none of the students I've personally worked with have even had the option, okay? But according to the College Board's website, some states for a school day administration might offer or require an essay. So if that's you, cool, just go ahead and do the essay. I don't really think you need to study for it. Frankly, none of the colleges are going to require it of you, right? And if this never comes up for you, which is going to be most of you watching, then yeah, for you, the essay is non-existent because for all intents and purposes, it is non-existent. Okay, so that is the deal with the random essay that you're like, what? There's an essay on the digital SAT. So if you're just tuning in, I'm Kristina Simos, the owner and founder of Ivy Lounge Test Prep. I help high schoolers like you all over the globe drastically raise your SAT and ACT test scores and ultimately get into the colleges of your dreams. So now I have a quick question to ask you, and that is, are you an SAT person or an ACT person? I would love to know because that kind of affects this whole essay topic that we're discussing right now. Okay, so just drop it in the comments below. I'd love to read your responses. And while you're at it, just go ahead and like this video and also just subscribe to my channel because then that way, whenever I have news or tips and tricks about the SAT, the ACT, just getting into college application essays, all of it, you will be the very first to know. So now let's talk about the ACT's essay, also known as the writing test. Okay, so it is a 40-minute essay if you are a regular time test taker. If you are registering to do the ACT with the added optional essay, it would increase your registration fee by $25, so from $69 to $94. It is graded separately from your multiple choice sections, right? So for the writing on the ACT, you would get a score, lowest is 2, highest is 12. And it would have nothing to do with your composite score, which would be the average of your multiple choice sections, okay? If you are doing the current version of the ACT, then it would be, the English, the math, the reading, the science, all four of those get averaged for a possible 36 points. If you're taking the new version of the ACT, so if you're taking the ACT online, April 2025 or after, then it would be just the first 3 sections, the English, the math, the reading. Those 3 would get averaged for your composite score. Science would be a separate score because it's optional, but a separate up to 36 points. And then the writing is still optional. If you're doing the ACT paper and pencil, like with a number 2 pencil in your bubble sheet, then you will be getting this new format come September of 2025, right? So again, only the first 3 sections would be averaged for your composite. The science section would be optional, but it would be separate, right? And then the writing test would also be optional and separate. Just in case you were wondering, you can't just take the writing or the essay of the ACT by itself. Like you have to actually sign up to do the multiple choice sections, and then it's an add-on to that. Does that make sense? So now that you know what it is, here's the big question. Do I have to take the essay or the writing test of the ACT? So as I mentioned when I was talking about the SAT's evolution of the essay, fewer and fewer schools started requiring the essays for either test, right? And that ultimately made the College Board drop the essay entirely. Now for the ACT, it still has the essay. And every year, that number of schools that require it for an application to be submitted keeps dwindling. It gets smaller and smaller. Now, even a few years ago, there were a couple schools that still required it, but I just searched all over the internet and scoured all sorts of colleges' testing policies on their websites. And it appears that now there's only one school that requires the test. Are you ready? It is Martin Luther College in Minnesota. Literally, the only college in the US that actually requires that you submit the essay score, the writing test score, with your ACT, if the ACT is your test. Now, the United States Military Academy, also known as West Point in New York State, it used to also require the writing test of the ACT. It definitely did last year for the people who were going to enter in and become West Point's class of 2028. However, for people who are currently applying right now, that means you're literally applying to colleges fall of 2024. That means you're graduating high school spring of 2025. That means you'd be graduating West Point in 2029. It appears that there is no essay requirement anymore. I say this because I scoured their website. It no longer mentions anything about the essay, doesn't even talk about it, doesn't have a question in the FAQ about it like it used to. And according to many online forums that I scoured, apparently when people have met in person from representatives from West Point, they say, in fact, that they have dropped the requirement. So obviously, maybe you want to call them again and just like double, triple check, but it appears that it is no longer required for the US Military Academy, which is great news. So now it's only required for Martin Luther College, okay? So the next question. Yeah, only one college in the United States even requires the essay for the ACT anymore. But aren't there some schools that like recommend that you take it? Yes. Well, let me rephrase. There used to be. A couple of years ago, there were 4 schools that recommended that you submit an essay score with your ACT. That was Colorado School of Mines, Bethune-Cookman University in Florida, Morehouse College in Georgia, and then Malloy College in New York. However, when I just scoured all of their websites, none of them even mention the essay on the ACT anymore, let alone require or recommend. Like they don't even mention it. And furthermore, all 4 of those colleges are now test optional. So you don't even have to submit an ACT score or SAT score, period, in order to be, even considered into their college. So no, they don't really care anymore. Okay, so what does this mean for you? A few things. So the first thing is when you're deciding to take the ACT versus the digital SAT in the first place, don't even consider the essay on either one of them because it's not going to be a factor at all in choosing between those 2 tests. So just focus on multiple choice sections, and we're going to choose your test between those 2 based only on multiple choice sections. So that's the first thing. Number 2, as you start to prepare for the SAT and the ACT, only focus on the multiple choice sections of your preferred test. Assume you won't have to do the essay, okay? Now, if your college list eventually requires that you do the essay, and let me repeat, there is one case scenario where that happens. That means that you are an ACT person and also that your college list has Martin Luther College on it. Literally, you have to be that narrow of a Venn diagram of the different criteria for you to have to consider the essay. Okay, so if that is the case, you are an ACT person and you do plan on applying to Martin Luther College, then yes, you will need to register for the ACT with writing, but don't bother actually studying for the essay until 2 or 3 weeks before the test. It does not matter nearly as much as your composite score will. And also, all the other colleges on your list will only be looking at that composite score. So it's okay to procrastinate in this case because it isn't about procrastinating, it's about prioritizing what matters. Got it? And fourth, I know some of you are like, wait a second, but I know it's not required and maybe it's not recommended, but could it still help me get into college? Now, there are some places in the college prep process where, okay, it's not required, but come on, like you got to show you want it. So do more than what the bare minimum is to get in. Now, this would apply in a lot of situations when you have some test optional colleges on your college list, but it would still be a good idea to prove you are academically ready for college by preparing for and taking one of the tests and then submitting a nice score. So that would be a place where going above and beyond can help you. But a place where going above and beyond does not help you and is kind of taking up your time would be the case of the ACT essay. You do not need to do the essay. So like literally, unless you are applying to Martin Luther College and also the ACT is your test, not the digital SAT, that's the only case where you even need to bother. So I hope I just gave you some good news, right? Because there are so many things where we get bad news and we're like, oh, I have to do that too. But the essay is the case where honestly, don't even bother. Literally, it probably 99.9% does not apply to you. So don't waste your time. So if you want to find out other ways to save your sanity and your time during this whole test prep, college prep process, I have good news for you. I actually have a free webinar in the link below, so you can click on and register, and it is called your Fail-Proof College Prep Plan. Find out more in the link below.